Welcome to Lesson 3, Representing Patterns. In this lesson, we are going to continue working with patterns in pictures and in tables, and to create pattern rules to describe how these patterns are changing. So let's begin with an example. So here we have a pattern of different figures with little squares in them. This is figure 1, this is figure 2, figure 3, figure 4, and figure 5. Let's see if we can record in a table how many squares there are in each figure. So go ahead and draw this table in your notebook and record the number of squares for each figure, and then pause the video and then press play once you have done that. So after doing some counting, you figured out that we start with 3 squares in the first figure. And then in the second figure we have 7 squares. In the third figure we have 11 squares. Then 15 squares in the fourth figure. And the fifth figure has 19 squares in it. So if that doesn't quite match up with your numbers, go ahead and carefully count the number of squares in each figure. So now think about, how does this pattern grow? How does it change? How do we get from 3 squares to 7, from 7 to 11, from 11 to 15, from 15 to 19? So pause the video and think about that for a moment. So we agree that the pattern grows, that it gets bigger, and you've probably realized that each time we are adding 4 more squares. So 3 plus 4 is 7, 7 plus 4 is 11, 11 plus 4 is 15, and 15 plus 4 is 19. So we're adding 4 squares each time. So the next thing we need to think about is, what is the pattern rule? The pattern rule is a sentence that tells us what number we start at and how the numbers change. So again, pause the video and try to think about what the pattern rule might say. So our pattern rule simply says that we start at 3 and we add 4 each time. So now we've gone from taking a pattern in a picture to recording it in a table, to figuring out how the pattern changes, and then finally to writing this information down in a pattern rule. So let's try another example. This time you are going to do the work. We're going to actually work backward in this example. I've given you the pattern rule, which says start at 10, subtract 2 each time, and you are going to fill in the table. You might want to draw yourself pictures of this pattern and how it's changing to help you, and then secondly, fill in the table below, or if you want, you can just jump straight into filling in the number of circles for each figure number. Remember, we start at 10, subtract 2 each time. So pause the video and come back and watch once your table is filled in. So figure 1 would have to have 10 circles if the pattern rule states that we start at 10. And when we subtract 2 from 10, so 10 minus 2, we get 8 in the second figure. And if we subtract 2 more, we get 6 in figure number 3. And we subtract 2 more, and we get 4 in figure number 4. And finally, figure number 5 would have 2 circles in it. So patterns don't always have to grow. Patterns can also get smaller, as in this example where each figure number has fewer circles than the one before it. So we can use subtraction as well as addition. So in this lesson we learned about different ways to represent patterns. We can represent patterns in several different ways. We can represent them as a pattern rule. We can show the pattern in a table like this. We can show the pattern in a picture like this as well. And we can start with a pattern rule and work through the different representations this way, or we can start with a picture first and then create a table And then finally the pattern rule. It really doesn't matter. It's just important that you know that there are different ways to show the different patterns that we are working with. So if you need any help, please ask your teacher or watch the video again as well. Have fun with representing patterns.